Amanda is my brother's girlfriend. At the time of this story, she was looking for her first apartment and moving out from her parents' house. Her and my brother didn't want to move in together since they had only dated for a few months. She opted instead to search for a roommate online. Browsing Craigslist, she found an ad that someone was looking for a roommate. Only female. This sort of thing was common since the area she was looking in was mostly young professionals. The listing was for a room in a house for about $225 a month, which was quite cheap compared to the most places listed. The occupant listed herself as a 23-year-old college student that wasn't comfortable with living with any males. The other roommate would have their own room and attached bathroom. So far, Amanda was into this place. However, the listing only had a single photo from outside the property. Amanda sent an email wanting to meet the occupant and tour the house. Within 30 minutes, she receives an email back with all the details and time to stop by. The girl worked late hours and wanted Amanda to stop by at 8 p.m. When Amanda arrives, there is a handwritten note on the front door saying that the door is broken and she should use the back door. Walking around the house, it looks nice but slightly unkempt. Tall grass, weeds, dusty windows. Still no alarms for Amanda though. When she knocks on the back door, and an older man opens the door. At first Amanda thinks she has the wrong house, but the man reassures her and says that the occupant was out and he was the landlord. The occupant asked him to meet Amanda since she was working late. He seemed pleasant and offered to show her around. Alarms start going off but aren't at red alert yet. First, the guy was clearly in his 40s, unshaven, and looked like he lived in his car. Also, only the kitchen light was on. As they walked around the house, Amanda noticed one huge red flag: no furniture. Nothing. The landlord was polite about answering questions but seemed irritable to keeping lights on for too long, rushing her around and only letting her look at rooms for a few moments. There was a single room that the landlord wouldn't open, telling her that it was the occupant's room and he didn't want to invade her privacy. As they walk down the hallway into the living room, she notices the front door has a plank nailed across it. Amanda's creepometer has started to ding, so she decides to wrap up the walkthrough and leave, but trying to be polite. As she's giving the guy her thanks for the showing bit, he perks up and states that he forgot to show her the basement. It's recently furnished and would be a great rec room, and she should take a look down there. At the time, Amanda and the landlord are standing in the small hallway between the front living room and the back kitchen. In this little hallway was the basement door. When he opens the door, it opens outward to create something of a barrier between Amanda and the back door. The basement is pitch black. He smiles, motions down the stairs, and says, "Ladies first." What happens next is nothing more than a stroke of luck. Amanda gets a text just as some random person parks in front of the house. Thinking on her feet, she pretends it's a phone call and answers her phone. "Hey. Yeah, are you here? I'll come out from around back and let you in. It's great, you have to see it." With a motion of confidence, she excuses herself around the landlord and walks out of the back door. She says the guy just looked at her like he was confused. Once outside, she sprinted to her car and sped like hell out of there. When Amanda got home, she told her mother and my brother everything. Cops were called. They took her statement and went to investigate. The ad post had been removed. The house had been foreclosed over 6 months earlier, and the property had been abandoned. When the police investigated, they found that the closed room the landlord didn't want her to look in was where the man had been staying. There was a pile of old dirty blankets, rotten food, and empty gallon jugs everywhere. More creepy was he had plastered ripped up pages from adult magazines on all the walls in the room. The really scary part of this was the basement. The man had tied a thin piece of fishing twine at about shin level across the stairs about halfway down. The basement was empty except another pile of old blankets, a broom handle wrapped in leather belts, and a small box with a few rolls of assorted tape. Amanda ended up not moving in. My last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive, while unconscious. unconscious on the ground. I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years we got married and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day while sitting on the couch I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but strange. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at the lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me. By this time my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. My wife, my kids, none of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective, and all I could see was red. I heard voices and screams. All kinds of weird noises, and I became aware of pain. A ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth," and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots of them were freaking out. I was completely confused. At some point a cop scooped me up, dragged me and walked me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop and given CT scans and stuff. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have. Sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He is perpetually 5 years old and I can never hear what he says. In its most basic form, my intent is to purposely become infected with HIV. Many chasers will have different goals once they attain that diagnosis. Some will quickly go on antiretroviral medications and maintain an undetectable status. Others will be lax on taking their drugs so they can gift the virus to others. Then there are those who want to go natural. These are people who want to contract HIV and allow it to develop into AIDS. I fall into the last category. In a nutshell, that's my post. I want to contract HIV and let it destroy me. I first learned about HIV fetishization when I was 16 years old. I had been reading a personal story that was meant to scare me out of risky intercourse. About a man who was forcibly barebacked by an HIV-positive man and infected. While most of the commenters were horrified, I was excited. I kept thinking what was wrong with me. There's nothing attractive about an incurable illness. I tried to leave it be, but I kept getting deeper into it. First I started reading fictional stories about chasing HIV or intentionally giving it to people. At first I tried to just read them, but God, I couldn't resist it. I started pleasuring myself to them. The excitement I get just from reading about HIV infection is by far the strongest I've ever had. I kept denying it to myself. Oh, it's just a fantasy. Why would you want that? What a lie that turned out to be. From the moment I first heard about someone intentionally infected another man with HIV, it was like a monster was awakened inside of me. That's what I wanted to do too. Horrible. But it's so arousing I just stopped thinking. I don't care what it is. My entire life I've never wanted to hurt anyone. But suddenly the sexiest thing I can think of is ruining someone's life with a virus. I tell myself that they don't know that it's really a blessing. Being paused sets you free. I hated myself for thinking that way. I still hate myself for thinking that way. I still don't hate myself enough though. A few weeks ago I decided to stop wearing protection altogether, to engage with the highest risk partners possible, all in the hope of that positive diagnosis. From there, my plan is simple. Engage in as much partners as possible, and hopefully spread the virus to everyone I can. Never going on medication or even bothering with testing. The average life expectancy for an unmedicated HIV-positive person is 13 years. 13 years of complete freedom sounds like a great deal to me. It was near Halloween, when my friends and I were telling ghost stories. My friend said she was going to tell a story about her parents' first date. She said she didn't like telling the story, since it was actually true, but we prodded her on. To cut to the chase, the parents had spent a nice if awkward first date, and around the time, the male in the situation, my friend's dad, suggested that they go for a midnight hike up Provo Canyon. He apparently knew the place, since he had done a fair amount of rock climbing in the area. So the two drove up the mouth of the canyon, got out of their cars and started hiking under just the light of the stars, since it was a new moon. At some point, the male starts getting a bad feeling, since the pathway ahead, which would pass under some trees, would be dark, and because it was getting to be quite late. He ignores the feeling and presses on. In later rehearsing of the story, the female would say that she had felt the same feeling at what was probably the same time, though she didn't know the trail like he did. A minute later, the feeling came back to the male. He ignored it again, and started walking a bit of the way into the trees when his foot hit something soft in the middle of the path. Under the trees, it was too dark to see just what this soft thing was, and the feeling came back stronger than ever. Instead of finding out what his foot had bumped into, he and the female both agreed to hightail it out of there. Years later, after being married for some time, they were watching an interview with the serial killer, Ted Bundy. In response to a question asking him to describe the time that he felt the closest to being caught, he explained about the night that he lured a girl into Provo Canyon and had just killed her when he heard some people coming up the trail. He explained how he hid in the trees just in time, only to watch some guy walk right into the body, and for some reason, just turn around and walk away.